700. Think about that number. 700 incoming threats lighting up a radar screen. We're talking ballistic rockets, cruise missiles, hundreds and hundreds of drones all coming at you in one night, aimed right at your critical infrastructure. It just sounds impossible, doesn't it? Almost like something out of a movie. But this was reportedly the reality on the night of October 30th. Welcome to the Military Point. Before we continue, actually, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know.
Yeah, we'd really like to hear from you. So today we're doing a deep dive based on those preliminary findings, the ones reported by the Ukrainian Air Force about this massive multi-domain assault. You shared the source material, and really, our mission here is to look past the shock of those raw numbers.
Right.
What do 705 targets tracked and then 623 suppressed or destroyed? What does that actually tell us about modern air defense against these, well, absolute saturation tactics? That success rate, that's the big headline here, isn't it? I mean, 705 tracks, 623 neutralized. That's roughly, what, 88% success against an attack specifically designed to just completely overwhelm you.
Exactly.
That right there challenges the whole idea that saturation automatically means the defender fails.
It absolutely does. And the first thing to really grasp strategically is the kind of threat they were facing. This was a combined attack. Air-launched, sea-launched, land-launched platforms all hitting at the same time.
Not just a simple barrage.
No, not at all. It points to a carefully synchronized plan. The whole point is to swamp the defense systems with sheer variety and just volume.
Let's dig into that volume then. The 705 air targets detected and tracked. It's not just a big number, it's a terrifying mix. You said 52 missiles, which is significant on its own, but then 653 drones. That's the overload right there.
It forces an immediate, almost impossible decision about resources. You've got, say, 9 ballistic missiles. These are complex threats. They need specific, very expensive high-speed interceptors.
And you have seconds to react, basically.
Oh, seconds, not minutes. And they're likely heading for your most critical targets.
What makes them so tricky? Is it just the speed or the path they take?
It's both, really. The trajectory, that high arc, then re-entering the atmosphere incredibly fast. And not like a cruise missile that tries to stay low.
Okay.
So the engagement window is tiny. You have to throw your best, your highest-end assets at those 9 threats. But, and here's the strategic trap, while you're doing that, you've got maybe 400 Shahed drones.
The cheap ones.
Exactly. The vast majority of those 653 UAVs. Flying low, flying slow, heading towards, well, maybe secondary targets, maybe just trying to make you waste ammo.
So the defender is forced to prioritize the few really dangerous, high-value targets, knowing that the sheer swarm of the cheaper stuff, those 400 Shaheds, might get through simply because the high-end systems are busy and the more numerous, cheaper systems just get exhausted by the numbers.
Precisely. It's resource denial. Force the defender to burn through their most expensive interceptors on a handful of threats, while the sheer mass of cheap drones guarantees some hits somewhere else. That drone swarm volume, that's the real stress test. And dealing with it needs a totally different system than what you use for those 9 ballistics.
Okay. Let's pivot to this success then. Because that number 623, destroyed or suppressed targets, that's pretty remarkable given everything you just described. How does any military force manage that against such a multi-pronged assault?
Well, this kind of success, it really points to a fully integrated, multi-layered defense. It wasn't just one system pulling all the weight. The report mentions aviation, anti-aircraft missile units, and crucially, mobile fire groups and electronic warfare units.
Right, so coordination across branches.
Absolutely. Air assets, ground-based missiles, mobile teams, EW specialists, all working together simultaneously.
We've talked about mobile fire groups before. Sometimes people picture them as just, machine guns on pickup trucks. But their role is much bigger than that, strategically speaking.
Oh, much, much bigger. Think of them as the essential, affordable counter to the affordable threat. You don't want to waste $1 million missile on a drone that costs maybe $20,000, right?
Makes sense.
These mobile groups cover large areas, especially around cities. They're flexible, they're localized, and they're specifically designed to handle that sheer volume of UAVs, those hundreds of drones.
And you mentioned suppressed. That word is key here. Not all 623 were physically shot down with missiles or guns.
Correct. Electronic warfare, EW, is the other really critical part of this story. Suppressed means an EW unit essentially neutralized the target electronically, jammed its GPS, maybe that's control link.
So the drone or missile just gets lost?
Pretty much. It loses its way, flies off course, crashes somewhere harmless, or maybe even just lands without detonating. This capability is huge because it saves those precious, expensive kinetic interceptors. It lets you achieve a high neutralization rate without physically destroying everything.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, managing 623 neutralizations out of 705 tracked targets implies the command structure could actually manage all these different assets at once. High-end missile batteries, ground-based EW jammers, those dispersed mobile teams. Coordinating that in real time is a massive logistical feat.
It really is, and it's a critical insight, I think, for defense planning everywhere. These saturation attacks, they're going to rely more and more on assets vulnerable to EW, like drones. So EW units become, well, almost a primary air defense layer, not just something extra.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, breaking down what they actually intercepted. If we look at the specific tally, it really shows how they tackled that resource allocation problem you mentioned.
Yeah, the numbers are telling. You see massive success against the drone swarm, 592 attack UAVs taken out. That seems to validate the strategy of using those mobile fire groups heavily for that close-in, localized drone defense.
But, and this is key, they still managed to hit the high-value missile targets while dealing with that swarm. They intercepted 31 cruise and guided missiles that night. The list includes 7 calibers, 1 Iskander-K, 21 X-101s, and 2 KH-5969 guided aircraft missiles.
Right. And those 31, they're generally grouped as, high-end cruise and guided systems. They're significant because they can maneuver, some are land-launched like the Iskander-K, and they fly low, trying to hide from radar.
Harder targets than the drones, generally.
Definitely. Countering them needs those medium to long-range surface-to-air missile systems, the very systems you were trying to conserve for the even higher threat, those 9 ballistic missiles.
Well, you've basically got 3 battles happening at once. The super fast, high-altitude ballistic threat, the lower-flying, maneuvering cruise missile threat, and then just this massive, slow-moving drone swarm, a triple threat.
It is. And that success rate suggests they managed to effectively sort through it all, differentiate the threats, and assign the right tool to the right job, which is incredibly difficult under that kind of pressure.
So this brings up a point for discussion. Thinking about the poor person coordinating all this defense. Given that crazy mix, slow Shaheds, fast Iskanders, cruise missiles, what do you think is the single worst nightmare for that air defense coordinator? The one threat that really keeps them up at night?
That's a great question. For the coordinator, I think the nightmare is always the one with the highest consequence. The drones, they cause widespread damage, disruption, fear. It's attritional. But those 9 ballistic missiles, they demand an instant, perfect response.
Because of where they're aimed.
Exactly. Bigger warheads, often aimed at critical command centers, leadership, maybe key air defense nodes themselves. The low-cost, high-volume drone strategy is incredibly stressful and resource-intensive, yes. But the high-speed, high-consequence ballistic strategy, that feels more existential.
Yeah, that makes sense. Of course, we have to be realistic. No defense is perfect, especially against something like this. The report does clarify that some got through. 16 missiles and 63 drones apparently hit their targets.
And those hits weren't concentrated in one place. They were spread out, direct impacts recorded in 20 different populated areas across Ukraine. That tells you the attack was aimed nationally, trying to hit multiple critical points simultaneously.
There's also the aftermath of the defense itself, right? When you shoot down or neutralize 623 things,
Yeah.
they have to come down somewhere. Debris.
Absolutely. That's a crucial part of the analysis. Debris from downed targets could be drone fragments, could be large pieces of missiles, was recorded in 19 other locations. So you have damage from direct hits, and then you have potential collateral damage or secondary impacts from the debris of the things you successfully stopped. The military has to track all of that.
And we know some locations got hit hard. Zaporizhia, for instance. Reports mentioned a massive attack there using both the suicide drones and ballistic missiles, causing really powerful explosions. This wasn't just minor damage, it was clearly aimed at disabling core infrastructure.
And then there's this one really interesting detail, almost a footnote, but it speaks volumes about the chaos, the fog of war in these situations. The report mentioned 3 enemy missiles that are essentially lost, unaccounted for. Information about where they ended up is still being clarified.
Plus, what does that mean? How do you just lose track of 3 missiles during an attack like this?
Well, during a saturation event, your tracking systems are absolutely swamped. You're filtering hundreds, maybe thousands of radar returns, trying to sort real threats from clutter, from decoys, maybe even from electronic warfare effects designed to confuse you.
So they could have just vanished from the screens.
It's possible. Maybe the system got overloaded. Maybe some kind of jamming briefly hid them. Maybe their own guidance failed and they crashed harmlessly in an empty field somewhere. But the point is, even with sophisticated defenses, maintaining perfect, real-time situational awareness on every single object during such an intense attack is incredibly challenging. Those three missing missiles. They represent unknowns that require painstaking post-attack reconnaissance to figure out what actually happened. Were they duds? Did they hit something unreported? Was the tracking data itself messed with? So if we pull this all together from our deep dive, the really crucial takeaway here is, I think, strategic. The success against this massive 705 target assault, it really underscores the importance of operational tempo and, critically, the reliance on diverse, layered defense tech.
You can't just have one silver bullet system.
No, modern defense has to be dynamic. It needs the high-end interceptors for the really fast, high-altitude threats like ballistics. It needs those specialized, numerous mobile fire groups for the drone swarms. And increasingly, it needs powerful electronic warfare capabilities. That mix is essential to handle attacks deliberately designed to be cheap and numerous.
And that point about electronic warfare, about suppression versus kinetic destruction, that really changes things, doesn't it? It brings up a big question for the future.
Yeah.
As EW becomes more central, maybe even as important as shooting things down, how do the rules of engagement evolve? How do we even measure success in air defense? Is jamming a drone so it lands harmlessly in a field considered the same level of success as hitting it with an expensive missile? That's a strategic dilemma commanders are probably grappling with right now. You've been listening to The Military Point. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.